Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Very excited that you all are here with us today. We have an amazing session from one of our CodePath alums. This session is titled CodePath, from CodePath to securing three top internships. Okay, before we get into the actual presentation, let's still remember our house rules. Essentially, let's make sure that we want you all to utilize the chat, but let's make sure that what you all are saying in the chat is relevant to today's speaker. Okay. Also, make sure that at the end of this presentation, you make sure that you actually fill out our survey. We'll drop that a little later on for you. Okay. But without further ado, I want to introduce Sebastian. Okay, Sebastian is a software engineering intern at Google, previously at JP Morgan Chase and UKG, studying science at Florida International University. He was born in the Dominican Republic and moved to the U.S. at 12. He's been residing in Miami for the last 5 years. He's taken the following CodePath courses: Android 101, Web Development 103, Tip 103, iOS 102, and ICP. So he's taken quite a few CodePath courses. So everybody, here's Sebastian, and I will hand it over to him.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, I've actually taken quite a few of the CodePath courses, which is kind of one of the pieces of the secret that you need to have nowadays. But yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to be here, and hopefully, I can provide some useful information for all of you. As somebody pointed in the chat, I do have the intern hat. It's kind of funky, but I'll go ahead and take it off. Uh, but yeah, I guess first thing I want to do is kind of talk about my journey into CodePath. Uh, Originally, I actually, when I came to the U.S., lived in Ohio for pretty much middle school to high school, and then when I graduated high school, I came down to Florida. Not of my own will, but actually, my mother wanted to move down here, so I was okay. Let's go ahead and do it. Happy to be here. So, kind of my first year and a half, I went to Miami-Dade College, and at that point, I didn't really have anybody in tech who knew what the journey of what it is actually required for somebody to actually get a job or like get an internship. I didn't know what internships were, but what the purpose of them would be. So I was late to the game, but it's never too late. That's kind of one of the things that I realize now is that you always have to keep going, keep being persistent. Um, and always keep pushing forward. I guess like one of the things I've realized also is like if you're not getting a rejection a day from whatever company, like you're not doing it right at this point. It's all about looking for applications, looking for opportunities, and just really applying and keep applying to jobs or internships, whatever it may be. Um, but yeah, after I kind of went to Miami Dade, graduated, then I actually transferred to FIU, which is where I got my introduction to CodePath. It was through a club here, which is another part of the sauce that you have to kind of chase, is making sure that you have a good amount of connections within your school and actively participating in clubs and different activities. Because college gives you a good foundation on what you actually have to learn and be able to know to be a computer scientist. But a lot of jobs are not looking for computer scientists. They're looking for people who can build stuff and solve problems. So if you're looking to build stuff, you actually have to go out and build stuff. So I was active in it. I actually participated in one of their courses, kind of a semester long project, and that's where people were talking about CodePath and what they kind of have to offer. So that's when I was like, oh, this seems really cool. So I went ahead and put my application in for the Android development course 101. And then, the rest is history. After that, I kind of really enjoyed it, realized kind of the value of having um, a good amount of support from outside of your school and even outside of your family. There's a lot of mentorship, from the courses, but also through the Career Center. They have really great coaches. I mean, even leading up to my internships, I've been getting a lot of help from various people, which has been really amazing. And I'm really thankful. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my journey. Um, Let me see. I guess we can go ahead and start with the questions. I more or less, it's been a long day, so I want to make this free flow. I want to answer any questions you all have about kind of my journey or maybe what you can do to hopefully get an internship or a job. I'm currently looking for jobs, so we're all in the same boat. So Let's see. Let me look.
Hey, Sebastian, I'm back.
Hey,
How are you? So let's get into a few questions, okay? So the first question I have is, what makes a candidate stand out to be selected for an internship?
I think there's a good amount of luck involved, actually. I feel like a lot of the time, when you're looking for internships, if you don't have much experience on your resume, the first thing I would say is go out to CodePath, apply to one of the tracks, whether it be web development or mobile development, cybersecurity, and kind of see the big picture. It's not just about like this semester and getting an internship this year. If you can't get it this year, maybe you don't have the right projects or the right preparation. You can set yourself up to next year actually be able to get an internship. So when I first took my first course, Android, nothing came of it as far as internship, but I actually learned a lot about what the process is to get an internship. So I signed up for more courses, the web development track, and that's when I actually began to have meaningful uh, projects in my resume that actually stand out to employers. Because a lot of the time when you apply to internships, one of the first steps is actually get a resume screen. So you need to have a good enough resume. It doesn't have to be, especially if it's your first internship, it doesn't have to be full with all this experience, but it shows that you're passionate about technology, you're passionate about building, you can collaborate with people. Um, so I would say that that's one of the things that you can do to really stand out is have great projects, and just make sure that resume is formatted correctly. But I'm sure there's a lot of help online, but that's another thing. You don't want to have like a poorly or like sloppy resume. That can really deter uh, readers. Even if some people send me resumes and I look at them, sometimes it's like, okay, you can use a template and literally make this so much better. So, yeah, I hope that that kind of answers that.
For sure. Question, how did you manage doing schoolwork, applying for your internships, and also interview prep? Like, how did you manage all of that under one umbrella?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it all comes down to kind of time management. Aside from just like that stuff, I was actually working at UPS for a few years. So that was another factor that actually played into that. But I would say is getting organized, making sure that you have the right courses within your school, and you're not like bogged down with too many difficult classes. I would say it's really important to sit down with your advisor and make sure that you have a good kind of path for yourself where you can have a few like programming courses alongside some like easy external like uh, general education requirements. So that would be the first thing, making sure that your schoolwork is not too overwhelming so that you can do other things, right? So like you don't want school to take up your whole day. It should only be like log into class, do the homework, maybe review, and then after you're done with that, you do whatever. If you have a job, you go to your job, and then kind of for me, what worked was actually at the end of the day. Um, I saw it. I used to play a lot of video games, and I kind of trade video games for like interview practice and just applying, building projects, right? So it's kind of at the end of the day, have some time to relax and just try to learn something. You don't have to learn everything or know how to do everything, but just learn something every day. Maybe if it's as far as like technical preparation, maybe one lead code question a day. It's a lot actually. Like it's a big commitment. But yeah, just slowly but surely, kind of making sure that you have your time planned out and look at the long term map for the semester. It's not just about like every day, but like in a week, how much time do you need for school? How much time do you need for interview prep? And for other things like being around with your family, going outside. So
Fair. This is a really good question. It says, how much did your time at FIU help you on your journey to Google? If you could go back, would you rather have transferred to a different college? This particular student is thinking about BC and debated between FIU and UCF.
yeah, I've actually had a really amazing time at FIU. I'm really thankful for all the kind of people that I've run into and all the clubs, actually, especially in it as a club and CodePath kind of adjacent. Um, because I feel like FIU has given me more opportunities that I didn't have before. Like I didn't feel supported as much at Miami Dade. I feel like everybody just went to class and got their stuff done and then went home. Whereas at FIU, if you go to, in person in the campus, they have the PG6 building, kind of the computer lab where people are there actively collaborating, doing stuff. And I feel like it's been a lot easier for me to build a community there. And it's really great. As far as like FIU and UCF, I think probably depends up to you and your family. Like if your family is all in Miami, um, I would probably just choose to stay near my family. Maybe if we have a job or other commitments. But I'm not really familiar as far as like the curriculums or anything like that specifically between like FIU and UCF. I'm sure they're probably both great, but it's not necessarily about like a specific school. It's about like doing the stuff outside of the class, um, like CodePath or clubs, because this is what's actually going to make you stand out. A degree at the end of the day is just a degree. You took the courses, you went through it. Now with like generative AI and things like that, like it's very easy to like pass a course for the most part, but it's very difficult to build a project with a whole group of people for a semester and show that you did X, Y, and Z. So that's what I would say you have to focus on. Kind of making sure that you're near your family and what matters to you, and making sure that you look out for other opportunities outside of your school.
Awesome response. Now, Sebastian, I have a really good question for you. So tread lightly, okay? This one says, how much does taking a CodePath course help you in landing an internship opportunity? I'm ready for this response.
I think the course that you take,
Mhm.
it depends, because I guess let me see how do I phrase it? Because one thing is like one thing when you apply to internships or you know jobs is that you have to pass the resume screen, so you have to have projects, you have to have some kind of experience. But then once you get past that, then they hit you with the online assessment, they hit you with the
Yeah,
back-to-back interviews, right? So that's kind of the other whole part of this, right? It's not as easy as just like, oh, okay, he's done stuff, she's done stuff, right? Um, so I would say you have to take a combination between the technical interview prep courses. I think it's a really great track. I took the 102 and 103 courses, um, and I had a great time. I mean, the amount of depth and knowledge that the professors had, or instructors, uh, it was really remarkable. So that's kind of how you get past the technical preparation aspect of it. And probably I would say 101 and 102 for sure. And then 103 is kind of a good to have. Uh, but yeah, and then that's the technical preparation. But you also need to have a good resume and have experience building stuff. So you need both, honestly. But it's a really great opportunity that we all have to be able to take these courses for free and have these opportunities to just meet people. And even outside the somebody that I work with within my TIP course, Joshua, he's actually interning at Netflix, or last summer he did. We actually kind of linked up during this school semester, and we worked on a project together for one of our iOS classes. So it's a good way to meet people. I know that the way they kind of set up the courses, sometimes they'll put you with people from your own school,
mhm,
so that's also great. But yeah, I don't think without CodePath and in it at my school, I don't think I could have gotten the opportunities that I've been, at least not as soon as I did. So it's really serious. So.
for sure. Would you agree that it's like you said, it takes a combination? So yes, CodePath, of course, it definitely helps, but you also have to have the grit, the determination, the want for these opportunities, and you can't wait around for them, So a question that I have, how did you find your internship opportunities? Like, were you searching? Did they like fall into your lap? How did you actually find these three amazing internship opportunities?
Right, right. They did not fall into my lap. That's kind of funny. I guess the originally I had this experience. I had applied for a company, and I had an interview with a recruiter, and essentially the interview ended like this. We are looking for people that are building stuff that have experience with hackathons and clubs, and you don't have it now, but that's what I would recommend you have kind of build up. So I took that advice very seriously, and that's when I kind of uh, started to really focus on building stuff and collaborating with people. Um, but yeah, I think in general, just making sure that you stay hungry. It's never okay to just say, okay, I've applied to one job today.
Mhm.
I'm okay. Like, you should apply for as many jobs as you can get your hands on. And as far as like specifically how I got my opportunities, mostly through LinkedIn. If you follow the right people, there's a ton of people that like post daily jobs. Um, so that's good. And then LinkedIn itself will recommend you jobs. When you start like hitting the apply button, they'll send you emails with like, oh, here are 10 new jobs that you might see a good fit. And another one is this GitHub page. Now it's called, well, before it was just a GitHub page, but now it's actually a whole company. It's called Simplify. Essentially, you put your resume information and all the details, and when you apply to like a company like Workday or something like that, it would fill out all of your details, so you won't have to sit there and like put your name, last name, all that stuff. It'll do it for you. So that's a really good way to like put out all the applications. But yeah, that GitHub page, they have it's like, let me see, I could probably find it real quick. But yeah, they have internships and full-time jobs, off-season internships. I'll put it in the chat. It's this one. But yeah, it's pretty updated. But yeah, that's mostly what I've done. LinkedIn and this page.
Cool beans. Thanks for that. So one question says, how do you manage feeling of comparison when others have more experience, stronger projects, or more polished resumes?
Feelings. I guess having a polished resume should not be a factor. They have online, you can find this like I find it too. It's like Jake's resume template or something,
Mhm.
something like that. It's like very standard. That's what I'm using now. But this, if you use this template, like your resume will be polished. So that shouldn't be, and like with AI and things like that, like resume should be polished regardless. Like it should have um good sentences that kind of describe what you did, how you did it, why it matters, that type of thing. And then, so that's something that I would say you have to have by default, right? But as far as like worrying about what other people are building, recruiters, I think, go through so many applications, like they don't have time to like deep dive, or they may not even like have the technical knowledge to like understand like the impact or the severity of this particular project that somebody probably spent a bunch of time on. But it's all about kind of how you sell what you did, and making sure that it's understandable to people who are not into tech. So nobody cares if you use X, Y, and Z frameworks to build a website. Like, what was the website? What was the point of it? What did it do? What problem did it solve? Right. So if you can kind of just pose your projects as like, okay, this is a problem that I had, and then these are the solutions, things like that. Um, I don't think it really, I've never worried about like, oh, what if somebody has a better project? Like nowadays, everybody's building stuff. So as long as you're building stuff too, it just should be fine. And I don't think in general comparing yourself. The only thing I would say comparing yourself that matters is like how many applications you've done. Like if somebody did 100 and you did 10, like I think that that's something fair to compare. Okay, so
Agreed. I love that.
yeah,
Let's see. So, how did you make the most out of your internship experiences?
right, right. That's something that when I guess most recently, I guess I'll talk about at Google. Um, and actually, I know you. I remember I actually worked with, or we worked on a hackathon at JP Morgan during one of my internships last year. So hello. But I would say definitely kind of have a plan to go into the internships and understand that like it's a limited amount of time, right? So you have, let's say, like 10 weeks. It's not an infinite amount of time. So you have to make sure that you understand that, but also your manager, whoever is building this project, also understands that, so that early on you can say, okay, we have this amount of time. I literally went like kind of week by week. These are the things that I want to get done by this amount of time. So like at some point, if something is not done, I understand like, okay, maybe I'm falling behind a little bit. How do I get back on track? But I would say planning is really important. And the other piece, by making sure that your manager, whoever is overseeing you, understands that it's a limited amount of time, is because you want to make sure that you can say at the end of the internship, I accomplished what I set out to accomplish. So if you never set up these goals or these targets that you wanted to hit, maybe a set of features for an app, or have it launch or whatever. If you don't define those things early on, then at the end of the internship, if you're looking at a blank slate of like, okay, I did this, and this, but like, was this everything that I needed to do? Um, it won't be good. So I would say it's definitely important to really have a plan, as far as like what you want to accomplish, and make sure that your manager also has a plan for you, and they understand kind of through daily check-ins or weekly, whatever, how your progress is doing. And besides just like the work, I think it's also important to connect with the interns. That's something I went to like every week at Google. They have a kind of an orientation session with all the new interns that are coming in for that week, and then past interns can come. So I would say it's important to also meet up with different people, see how they're doing, because a lot of the time they're also struggling, or maybe have a difficulty doing something. And it's good to have a community of support and understand that everybody's kind of in the same boat, and it's okay. So I hope that helps. It's great.
For sure. Let me find it's a really good one. What was your interview prep process like? Were you just amazing at it in the beginning, or did it take some time for you to get used to the interviewing style, the interview prep? How did that look?
Yeah, I think nobody's ready for interviewing. That's something I really didn't understand. That a lot of the time, even if you have these great projects or your resume looks great, if you're not able to kind of solve the or get the secret handshake that gets you in the door, right, then you may not get the opportunity. But yeah, from the beginning, you're not going to know anything. I still don't know that much. It's something you have to build on every week. uh so no, it's not immediate. I think you have to, at the beginning, it's good to kind of ramp up a little bit quicker, have a good pace for yourself where it's like every week or like every other day, I want to solve X amount of questions or one question at least or whatever. But it's good to kind of put pressure on yourself, positive pressure, not like negative pressure, to push and do what you want to set out to do. Good to have goals. Say, I want to be able to complete, I don't know, 50 interview LeetCode questions by the end of 3 months, whatever, something like that, so that you can track yourself and make sure that you're accountable for the things that you're doing. And then another thing is also that I think helped me a lot is just um, mock interviews. I know that, especially if you've never done an interview, you may not even like know what's going on. But usually these interviews, they expect kind of they have a similar format, especially for like the technical. But the behavioral, that's where things kind of get a little bit trickier, because they'll ask you like the company and what you know about them and why you want to work for them. What have you done in the past? So all these things I would say is important to research and watch people doing mock interviews. I feel like that helped me. And then once you kind of understand what the process is, do mock interviews maybe with somebody else in your class, or if you can get like a mock interview through the career center, I think that's very valuable. So yeah, just practice, do it over and over. Eventually, you get comfortable. Maybe I'm still not comfortable, so
It takes time, and
yeah,
I've been doing interviews for a long time, and it's you still get nervous sometimes. That imposter syndrome does sneak up on you, even when you know all of the material. So, like you said, just practice.
exactly.
Another great question. At what point did you feel ready to apply for internships? How many did you apply to?
hmm I would say the simple answer to this is like if you're having any doubts, just go apply today. Like it doesn't really matter, because even if you're not ready, if you get the chance to do the interview, it's great practice. I would say that the best practice that I've gotten is just to get interviews. Even if I don't necessarily want to work for that company, if they give me the opportunity, I'm going to try my best, and it's really great practice just to talk to people and interact. Um, so yeah, I think just go apply today. Apply to as many as you can. All the ones that are open on that GitHub that I sent, for sure, at least. Um, so yeah, I don't think you should wait to apply, honestly.
That's fair because you never get enough practice. Like you could go into. I've applied for jobs where I knew I wasn't qualified for. I had
Mhm.
interviews. I knew I wasn't going to get it, but it was great practice. So
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
literally love that. What do you believe made you stand out the best during your application process?
I guess let's say like initially when I had zero internships, right? What did my resume look like? My resume looked like I had a part-time job at UPS, and you know that was basically all the experience, and then a bunch of projects, maybe like 3 or 4 projects that were kind of big, related to different things that I was doing at the time. Maybe at some point, a few semesters ago, it was like a machine learning project, which because that was the thing that caught people's eyes, or maybe like a full stack project, building something, some kind of app. But yeah, I think at the beginning when you don't have experience, I think hackathons can really help you, um, and just projects in general. But then once you actually have like internship experience, you want to make sure that you highlight it really well in your resume. So it shouldn't just be like 3 bullet points, which I've seen this before. People have like, you know, 3 internships and they have like 2 bullet points for each internship saying basically nothing. And then they have a bunch of like they're cool projects, but if you have internship experience, that should be like, the majority of your resume, even if it's only one. You want to make sure that, people know that you're making meaningful contributions to an actual company. But if you don't have that, then it's a matter of uh, having projects and filling it up that way, or being active in clubs. But as far as referrals, I've never gotten a single referral anywhere, to be honest. I've cold applied everywhere. I think depends on the company, but a lot of the like bigger companies, it won't matter that much realistically because they're so big, they get so many applicants. But for smaller companies locally, I think it probably would help you stand out.
Have another really good one. This one says, "How did you manage without burnout with respect to applying for jobs? There could be tons of roles that are yet to being applied for. Even at the end of the day, how did you manage the count of job applications per day?"
I don't think I count, to be honest. I just kind of apply. They send me the confirmation. Oh, you applied. I'll hear back from them 4 months later talking about uh we've unfortunately decided to move on to a different candidate. And that's just part of the process. Like I said earlier, it's like if you're not getting one rejection a day, I don't think you're doing the right thing. Um
Yeah.
so I I know that they have CodePath has a spreadsheet that you can fill in with each application. I have not done that as thoroughly as I maybe should, but from the beginning, I just kind of, I see a job application on LinkedIn, okay, I'll go apply. I see one on the GitHub, we'll go apply. I mean, if anything comes out of it, they'll let you know, and that's when I actually began tracking. I don't track until they actually give me like a response, like a positive response, or if it's like a bigger company that you wanted to kind of target, then I would probably put that down as like, oh, they didn't, so like I don't forget. I'm like, did I apply or did I not? But usually I don't really write anything down until I get like a assessment or something like that. So that's when I actually began like actively tracking and like making sure that if it's like an interview, I have the right preparation, I know all this stuff about the company. um, but yeah, burnout is probably a real thing. I mean, um, I would say I don't sit down like a particular hour of the day and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna apply to all these jobs. Like it's usually kind of throughout the day. I'm like, oh, this interview or this job posted appeared on my LinkedIn. Okay, let's do it. Kind of like that. And that can probably help you not just try to block out 2 hours to apply for jobs every day. So I think kind of spreading it out throughout the day would probably help you.
Let me ask you this because I think I've always had um, I never understood the tracking of applications. I've never done it. I would just apply and see what happens. Sometimes I get callbacks from companies that I forgot. I don't know if it's the fear of the rejection or the fear of like seeing that you apply for so many jobs and have only heard back from two after 3 months. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you not track out of like a mental thing, or do you just it is what it is?
Yeah. I think probably mostly it's because like laziness probably. I mean, it's a
Fair.
lot of work to like individually like go in a spreadsheet and like write down. Like I guess the way that I would if I've done it before, I put like the companies that I wanted to apply to
Okay.
on a list. And I wanted to kind of make sure that I've hit them if their applications are open, or if not. Or maybe if I know that they're gonna open on a day, I'll put like a calendar. reminder, but mostly out of laziness, I think. And as you said, it's valid to think like, okay, I don't want to see like all the applications and like all the rejections, right? So I only put the positive ones. It's like, yeah, I'm doing a good job. um,
That's fair.
but yeah, I would say just do your thing, apply, apply some more, and then apply more again. So
Fair, fair. Um, Another student asks, top four project suggestions you believe are impactful when recruiters review a resume with little to no industry experience.
um, I mean, I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, I've done resume reviews for people, and I'm not a recruiter, so like, I'm not specifically targeting anything, any particular set of skills or anything. But I think if the job description is there and it says, um, we're looking for a machine learning engineer that knows how to work with OpenCV and other whatever PyTorch, other machine learning things, and if you have a project that does that same thing and you have, maybe let's say I'm gonna put it like this. Let's say you have a slot for like 3 projects on your resume. Um, and it probably would be beneficial for you to swap out maybe that machine learning project for your full stack, I don't know, YouTube clone, whatever. Because that's what the recruiter is going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for somebody with like machine learning experience. Um, so I think it depends on the job description. In general, I think full stack projects is the way to go. Nothing too specific. So anything that has like some kind of back end, some kind of front end, and it solves the problem, I think it's valuable. Um, so yeah, I'm not really sure about top 4 projects. I mean, usually I've seen a lot of like clones of something that you like to use. So I mentioned YouTube. Um, I don't know. I've done projects more like catered towards like inventory management, but that was because my aunt, she has her business and she needed some kind of solution for that. So I was like, oh, this seems like a cool problem to tackle. And yeah, in general, try to look for inspiration or maybe a family member that has an idea or something that they would like to see. But I don't think it matters that much,
Awesome.
specific like project.
Awesome. That
Mhm.
works. Another question is specific to your experience with UKG. I recently applied for UKG. What is the hiring process and how was your overall experience?
Yeah. UKG. I actually had a really great time at UKG. I had a really great team with great people, and also besides just the people was actually kind of the tech that we were working with, because the UKG, you have uh, kind of the standard Java C# backend, which is the majority of like the customer facing stuff. But like in the backend, um, internal tooling, things like that, they actually use like completely different tech, and it's like fairly open source and cool things that you can actually learn on your own. But yeah, in general, the interview process you could use fairly straightforward. I think they lean really heavily into the resume screening. So essentially, I think it goes like this: you have a resume screening by a recruiter. They'll check you out. They're like, okay, it looks good. Then you'll go ahead and move into some kind of interview with the recruiter directly to verify that their signals are right and you're a good fit. Then after that, they may send you some kind of online assessment to kind of gauge your skills, that in general. And then after that, then you will go straight into a final round of interviews. I believe it's 2 to 3 interviews. They'll have for sure like a technical 2 technical interviews, which would be like separate, like different people. Probably like some kind of easy to medium legal question. I think one of them I had 2 questions in one, but the questions were not like insanely difficult. So having a good foundation is definitely good. And then the second interview was actually kind of a object oriented programming question. It was less about specifically like data structure and algorithms, but more about like knowing what an interface is and reading a bunch of code and like fixing bugs and like making it work with like OOP concepts, object oriented programming concepts. Um, so I think that that's more or less the idea. I think they have maybe, depending on the role, they would have a like a job fit type of thing. So if it's like a specialized like role for like AI, things like that, they'll probably have an interview with somebody who knows about that to kind of verify that you know what you're talking about. So I hope that helps.
Fair. We're going to probably take maybe 2 to 3 more questions
Okay.
before we wrap it up. A student says they are graduating in December and didn't get to intern, but would still love to before graduation. Is that possible, and or is it a good or bad idea in your opinion?
Um, I would say it's definitely, if possible, I would say, let's say like a company you applied. I know some companies are still recruiting for like fall internships. Let's say, you know, you apply to a company, they hit you back, and they give you an offer, which may not happen that quick. But if you had an offer for an internship in the fall this year, I would definitely say take the internship and just graduate next year, because aside from just like getting the experience, a lot of the time the companies will actually just convert you to full time at the end of the internship. So it would be a lot easier to do that than try to break in through a bunch of interviews or resumes, trying to compete with people with like internships or that worked there previously through an internship. But yeah, I would say now it's very beneficial to have um, an internship, or maybe I guess in your school, depending on the school, they'll probably maybe look into like a research opportunity. That's something that I've also seen really cool projects. Uh, so yeah, I would say if possible, try to do it. If not, then it's gonna be a little bit more difficult probably.
Fair. Awesome. One student said, what was the most surprising thing that you learned working at Google?
Uh, I would say going into Google, I expected, that people were just gonna be like absolute geniuses and know everything about everything in the world, and that's not the case. I think that the most surprising thing is just like the openness of knowledge that you can gain. There is kind of the equivalent of Google and like Google search, but like for internal questions and uh, documentation. So I think it's important to really understand that as an engineer, you have to just be willing to look up something or find out how to do it if you don't know, and that's okay. It's not like they're expecting you to know everything. So that's something that really kind of surprised me, how much information they had readily available. So you could just like look up how to do something, and they will have like great documentation by other engineers telling you how to do it. Um, so yeah, that's probably
Cool.
what I would say.
Awesome. And the last question is, how important is it to apply early? If so, what is considered early? 1 day, 1 week, etc.
I mean, unless you know specifically, like, let's say uh, a week ago, I had somebody from my school. She works at Google and kind of does a campus outreach. She sent me and probably a whole lot of other people from my school an email telling us, "Oh, Google Step internship and full time or Step and Suite internships would open within a week on this day." Right. So if you know it's going to happen on this day, I would say mark your calendar and apply at 11:59 for that, like regardless of the company. So you want to be as early as you can. But if you don't know when it opened, like I would say just apply as you see it. Maybe save it for later, copy the link and apply later. But I wouldn't say like wait, oh let me wait until I finish this project. That's another thing, even. You don't have to finish a project to put it on your resume. Like if you're working on something, talk about like what is the overall, like what you're gonna do and what will you be working on as you kind of do it, and put it on there. But yeah, I don't think you should wait to apply. So
Awesome. Well, Sebastian, we really appreciate you for joining us this evening. Again, everybody give Sebastian a round of applause. Show your appreciation for him in the chat.
thank you.
We really, really do appreciate you for coming in and dropping jewels about your experience at 3 major tech companies. We really appreciate it. And students, please, if you scroll all the way up to the top, you will see a pinned resume book that's also in the chat. You're also going to see the survey that's in the chat as well. If you can fill that out, that will be amazing. Until tomorrow, we appreciate you all for joining us today. Have a great night, and we're going to play Bobby's final video.
Thank you for joining us in this session. I got some information before you leave. It says, Please take a moment to complete a brief survey to share your feedback. Remember how valuable feedback is. I'm trying to come back 3 years in a row, and it's all based on feedback, right? To see what comes up next, I want you to head back to the main stage and check out the schedule. See you soon in the next set of sessions.